Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. It's not quite July 4th, but we're getting pretty darn close. Are you excited? You got your barbecues set up? You got your plans ready? You ready to rock and roll and have some fun? Hopefully you are. Hopefully you're going to have safe fun. But of course, have a lot of fun. Have a beer, have a margarita, Mai Tai, whatever it might be. But stay safe, everyone. I am Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. You can find me here Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time on Fantasy Sports Daily. The show is free, as you're obviously well aware. If you're watching us live right now, you can see us at YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. You can also find us live on Facebook at facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. If you're in either one of those spots, you can leave comments and ask questions, and we answer them at the end of the show. Obviously, if you're not able to watch us live, totally fine. Both of those spots store the shows. You can also go to FantasyGuru.com, click the Elite Plus tab at the top, and find the episodes there. And also type in Fantasy Sports Daily into your podcast network. So lots of ways to find us. Just a quick little couple of housekeeping notes here on the show. Tomorrow and Friday, the next 2 days, we will not be live. We're going to be recorded tomorrow for July 4th. Happy Celebration America. I will talk about the all-time fantasy baseball draft that we held over at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. We put together the best fantasy baseball teams of all time. All the different shows had a team. Myself and Justin Fensterman had a team, so we put it together. I'll go through the entire team, talk about how it came together, how I think we did pretty darn well. So the best fantasy baseball team of all time. How many guys from the 1900s, the 1950s, 60s, 90s, 2000s did we have? You can check that out on the show tomorrow. And then on Friday, my breakdown of the Sirius XM hosted FSGA Champions Draft. That's a 14-team PPR football league. I had picked number 11. That draft was actually live on SiriusXM. Myself and Justin Fensterman hosted it, so I was in it while I was also drafting and hosting. But on Friday, I'll break it all down. I did something I'd never really done in an industry draft before, and it was pleasantly surprising how it turned out. I got to be honest with you. I didn't expect it to turn out the way it did. Jeff Manns has given this line of thought some voice on the SiriusXM show as a strategy that might work, and it kind of did. So we'll talk about that on Friday. Today is Wednesday, my big day of talking. I will be on with Jeff Manns on the Elite Sports Show. Jeff's show is on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday through Friday at 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm with them every Wednesday. And tonight is the final show, the Elite Sports Game Time Show. A final one there. I'll be hosting it solo. Justin Fensterman starting his vacation today. So I'll be hosting the show solo. Basically a huge slate of baseball games tonight. We'll go through it all live. We'll talk about the core fours. We'll talk about all of the GPP and cash game breakdown articles. We'll talk about any of the wagering pieces we've got over at FantasyGuru.com. So get over there and watch the show tonight. As you can see there on the screen, if you want to sign up for the Elite DFS package for baseball, we just lowered the price to under $100 for the rest of the season. Get the cash game breakdowns, the GPP, get access to Discord to ask your questions as you're setting those lineups. All of that DFS baseball under $100 the rest of the way. And also under $100 the rest of the way is the gaming package. Myself, Ted Schuster, I created a new person. Ted Schuster, Jeff Manns, Rob Brink, all the four of us putting in baseball bets there as well. That package also less than $100 the rest of the way. What are we doing today? You can see it on the screen there for those of you that have access. We're talking we have a trade. Aaron Civale got traded this morning. Got a trade to talk about. Luis Hill imploding. Tim Anderson, Xavier Edwards, Gabriel Moreno, Blaze Alexander, and Drew Thorpe. And then it's all injury talk, and it's bad. Royce Lewis got hurt again, Evan Carter, Kyle Harrison, Robbie Ray, Blake Snell, Alex Cobb, Casey Mize. These are just names that we're going to talk about. Jack Flaherty, Tyler Mahle, Ryan Weathers, Josiah Gray, Jordan Montgomery. Tyler Mahle's on there twice. Good for Tyler Mahle. Brandon, David Bednar, Clayton Kershaw, Kyle Tucker, Kerry Carpenter, Corey Seager, Josh Jung, and Isiah Kiner-Falefa. Some of that's good. Some of that's not good news. And then we'll visit with Armando and Marsal. We're going to talk over drafters and best ball, talk over that a little bit, and get his thoughts on things like the red zone, guys that have had success there last season. Are they going to repeat that? Teams that had success there last season, but maybe have different players this season. How is that going to go? We'll talk a little bit about all of that with Armando here in about a half hour. All right. At the top, we got a trade, and let's see if I can find some information on this, because right as I was starting this up, I wasn't able to find any information. John Heyman, excuse me. I don't know how to say his name right. Basically tweeted out that Aaron Civale has been traded by the Tampa Bay Rays. He's been traded. Oh, here we go. So we have the update. He's been traded to the Brewers for infielder Gregory Barrios. So there you go. Aaron Civale now heads to a team in the Brewers who really needed a boost on the pitching side of things, obviously. They lost Burns. Woodruff has been hurt. The two of the three big guys from last season, Freddie Peralta, the only guy left. DL Hall continues to struggle with his knee issue. Joe Ross has got the back issue. Wade Miley had Tommy John surgery. Robert Gasser, elbow surgery. Like, they've lost all these guys. Their pitching rotation's rough. They just signed Dallas freaking Keuchel, for goodness sakes. So getting, Aaron Civale, whether he's really good or not, he's an established major league pitcher. There are some, advanced metrics that suggest, like xFIP, that his ERA should be about a run lower than it is. Aaron Civale throws about 6 different pitches. He mixes and matches. He's more a guy than anything significant. But hey, again, the Brewers need a guy. There's nothing wrong with getting a guy. We'll see if maybe a little bit of a tweak here. Maybe the Brewers can unlock something a little bit with Civale, but he goes from the Rays to the Brewers. Now, the exciting piece of this is what could happen on the other side. Shane Baz is not officially part of the rotation yet, but it sure seems like he's going to be. He was scheduled to start today. They pulled him off that. The thought was maybe that they would need him as a fill-in because of the doubleheader situation that they're dealing with potentially today. He's not, again, officially been promoted. But what we can say about Shane Baz is he's got 44 strikeouts in 39 innings. He's made 10 starts down on the farm and has come back from the injury. He's not looking like somebody right now who's going 6 or 7 innings in a game, but that's fine. He's going to go out there and probably go 5 innings and give you 7 strikeouts. I mean, Shane Baz, for all the injuries and everything he's dealt with, let's remember the core. Whereas Aaron Civale is just a guy who ham and eggs it, Shane Baz can be an ace. Whether he develops to be an ace, whether he can stay healthy, those things are to be determined. But Shane Baz is a dominant force on the hill. He could eventually perform like Tyler Glasnow. All right, so he's somebody. So if Baz is on the waiver wire, make the move now. We don't want to wait till he's actually officially promoted and people get nuts. With this trade this morning, too, of Aaron Civale out, opens it wide up. So people are probably going to be running to the waiver wire. I don't have the ability to add Baz in any leagues because I don't have open waivers. I do have Baz in my keeper league, so I feel good about that. But he's likely to be up here with the Rays in very short order, and he is an arm to covet. Luis Gil, I mean, I unfortunately was having a discussion with somebody in the Discord room this morning, and they talked about dropping Gil, and I nicely said, look, I wrote an article almost exactly a month ago from today saying who is Luis Gil, and we've talked about him here on the show. I've hinted at it in articles, but I wrote an entire article a month ago saying, now's the time to get out. Get out. If you didn't get out, I mean, his ERA is 14.9 his last 3 starts, and it's bad. It is really bad. He's not missing bats. He's lost complete control of the strike zone. His ability to prevent runs has vanished. And as we've hinted here on the show, Gil is going to get shut down. He's going to get sent to the bullpen. They're going to skip a start. They're going to put him on the injury list. Something has got to change because he's a punching bag right now. He just doesn't have it. And I don't blame him at all. We talked about this. There was always regression that was going to come. He was performing over his head. There's always the concern about workload. I mean, and I think that has a large portion to do with this. Hopefully you moved on from Gil. You traded him a month ago. You traded him 3 weeks ago. If you got him now, I mean, if you could trade him for something, do it. I really struggle to think you're going to be able to after his last 3 outings. We've talked about it. I don't want to belabor the point. We've talked about this a lot. He's in a bad spot. This is what was predicted. Again, his first 12 starts, I was wrong. Now we're getting the part where, unfortunately, it's snapping back into reality with him on another rough effort last night against the Reds, giving up 4 runs in his 4 innings of work. Okay, Tim Anderson has been released by the Marlins. He had a great 3 weeks out of the entire season. It wasn't enough to save his job. Xavier Edwards is expected to take over in the daily lineup. They've obviously got Vidal Brujan and Lopez. Like, they can move guys around and all that, but the expectation is that Xavier Edwards takes over. Edwards is a player to put on a watch list. It's not, we got to go get this guy right now in mixed leagues, but he is a tremendous talent. He is a former high-end prospect. He has not really found his footing, obviously, at the big league level, but it sounds like he's going to get an opportunity to play every day. He's got speed, which we love, and he's a better talent than he's performed. So we'll see if he gets an opportunity to run with this. Again, if you want to be really proactive, you can add Xavier Edwards now. I think that is being very aggressive, but I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. Gabriel Moreno has been activated from the injured list. His thumb situation back really quickly, which is good. That's kind of what they led us to believe there. So if you have him, hopefully he can pick up his bat. His bat is really good, Gabriel Moreno. He hasn't shown it this season much, but he can hit, flat out hit. And I'd be very interested in having him as my second catcher in a 2-catcher league if he's available on the waiver wire. Teammate Blaze Alexander, who, I don't know, everyone had to have Blaze Alexander. I don't think anyone listened to me when I said he's just a guy. Blaze Alexander was demoted yesterday. Again, 688 OPS, 101 isolated power, 3 home runs, 3 steals. Just a guy. Tremendous start. Just a guy. He's been terrible since that tremendous start, and the result of that was him being demoted to the minor leagues. Drew Thorpe, before we get to the injuries, Drew Thorpe was set to pitch Friday against the Marlins, or he will start Friday. Let me try this again. Start for the White Sox against the Marlins on Friday. He was initially slated to pitch on Thursday. So they backed him up a day. We're going to see this a lot with youngsters. We're going to see this a lot with pitchers all across the land right now. Bottom line is he's still starting. It's a better move. He's going to face the Marlins versus the Guardians. So if you're starting Drew Thorpe this week, that's actually a nice move. A much better opponent for him to face this week. Getting to the injured guys, and there's a bunch of them before we talk to Armando Marsal and talk some football. Royce Lewis, Royce Lewis is going to have an MRI for left groin tightness. He had a base hit yesterday, took about 3 steps out of the batter's box, started the little hitch in his giddy up. Dude is, again, I don't know what to say. There are certain players that are injury prone. And I don't know if that's even the right way to say it, but, Byron Buxton gets hurt all the time because he's flinging his body off of walls and diving and running at 30 miles an hour. And okay. Eloy Jimenez gets hurt just being Eloy Jimenez. I don't know. To me, he doesn't seem to have an athletic body. Okay. Is that fair? Probably not, but okay. In the case of Royce Lewis, he's a young guy, incredibly athletic, incredibly, muscular, great athletic body, and he breaks all the frickin' time. And, he said after the game, and to his credit, he's a pretty honest guy. And again, we interviewed him, Kyle Elfrink and I did 3 or 4 years ago when he was still coming up through the minors. Seemed like a really nice guy. He admitted after the game that he's not optimistic, that he thinks he's going on the injury list. And players rarely will tell you a negative. If the player says, I think I'm going on the injury list, book it, Dano. He's going on the injury list. Because players always say, yeah, I'm okay. And then, they find out, oh, he needs surgery, right? He can't stay on the field. And this is a problem. And when you're the Twins, and again, this is not fair because I've seen videos talking about what Byron Buxton does in the offseason, the training and all that. But Byron Buxton has become Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis has become Byron Buxton. And this is an organization that has 2 potentially elite talents that can't stay on the damn field. Royce Lewis is almost certain to go on the injured list. This will keep Jose Miranda, who we were talking about the other day, in the lineup. Will Brooks Lee be promoted? Probably. So again, if you're going to be proactive here, add Brooks Lee ahead of Xavier Edwards. I would make that move. Brooks Lee has got 7 home runs at AAA. He's been tearing it up. He's got 1,000+ OPS. He's an upper-end prospect. He is very likely to get called up if indeed Lewis, as expected, goes on the injured list. And could be in the lineup every day for the Twins. So Brooks Lee is someone to think about right now. Positive news for Evan Carter. He's going to face live pitching this week. He started swinging the bat a little bit this week, coming back from that back issue he's dealing with the Rangers. The couple of days here by the weekend facing live pitching. He'll then go out and do a minor league rehab assignment. The hope is he'll be back with the Rangers by the end of the month. And that's, right. Yeah. But don't forget, he was great last year, was Evan Carter. He was in the playoffs and the regular season. Coming into this year, a lot of people, including me, thought it is doable for him to go 2020. Hasn't been that guy this season, but this is still a tremendous talent if he can get that back right. Again, hoping by the end of the month for Evan Carter's return. On the pitching side of things, Giants, update. Kyle Harrison's got an ankle issue. He threw a bullpen yesterday. The hope is he's not going to need a minor league rehab assignment after dealing with that ankle issue. And he could be back before the All-Star game. Not a certainty, but right about, let's call it a week to 2. Right about there is when we expect the ankle issue to be healed enough for Kyle Harrison to return to the mound. Robbie Ray, who the Giants signed this offseason, working his way back from Tommy John surgery, is going to make a minor league start on Thursday at AAA. He continues to check all the boxes. His velocity is back. He's pitching effectively. He feels good. He is somebody that it seems possible that we could see him before the end of July for the Giants in the rotation. And we've talked about this. The Giants rotation could get very tight quickly. Jordan Hicks could potentially lose his spot because of workload concerns. They might do tandem starts. I don't know. We'll see. But Robbie Ray is also trending like Kyle Harrison to return this month. Alex Cobb is scheduled to throw a rehab outing on Friday. If he returns, he goes back into the rotation for the Giants. His hope, and again, we've had all kinds of hope with Cobb, so we can't book this, but the hope is that Cobb will be back by hopefully the end of the month. Now, again, that might be aggressive with him because he was supposed to be back according to some reports in May, right? So we'll see with Alex Cobb, but again, he's starting on Friday. Eyes watching that one. Blake Snell is going to start today. AAA Reno, he's supposed to throw 75 to 80 pitches. The hope is that this will be his last start at the minor league level, and his next outing will be with the Giants. As we have talked about over and over again with Blake Snell, has been a total mess this year. But think about that with the Giants. That's 4 starting pitchers: Harrison, Ray, Cobb, and Snell. Massive influx of talent if the Giants can get those 4 guys back here in short order. Casey Mize with the Tigers. He's gone. He's been placed on he has been or will be. I don't know. I didn't check this morning. Placed on the injured list. He's got that leg issue he's dealing with. So, that's a situation we have to deal with. Jack Flaherty. Now, this is probably the bigger news here because Jack Flaherty, though Casey Mize has been effective, Jack Flaherty has been great. He has the back issue. He missed the start earlier with the back issue, blah, blah, blah. He's getting a second injection. He had an injection last time and came back. He's getting another injection in his back, and he's having his start skipped this week. Okay. Multiple, and again, when you get injections, if it's like cortisone, I didn't see what it was. Let's assume it's cortisone. When you get an injection, it's to calm things down. It's usually to relieve swelling and to calm things down. When you start getting multiple injections for the same issue, there's a bigger problem going on here. We're masking the symptoms. If this was, the offseason, Jack Flaherty would just stop throwing, right? This is not. But we're trying to make it through the regular season. And, the shot thing, you can do shots, but you can only do a certain amount of shots, and they start to eventually lose their effectiveness. If you've got it, we're masking an injury. We're not fixing it by doing this. This is not surgical. It's not rest. We're masking it. It's the second time they've done this. He'll have another start skip. They're saying that he'll return next week against Cleveland. I don't know. Cross those fingers if you got Jack Flaherty. I mean, this is again, a recurrence of an issue that's not supposed to be a big deal. But again, a second series of injections for Jack Flaherty. Tyler Mahle of the Twins has started his rehab assignment last night. I listed him 14 times here. He was sitting at about 92 with his fastball, hit 93 a couple of times. I think he even hit 93.5 with one of his fastballs. So pretty close to his normal velocity, a little down. He threw like 19 pitches. He only went through 2 innings, but came out of the outing and felt good. The reports were very positive with him. Mahle is not somebody that we've talked about much here. And the reason being that, he's a veteran who I really like, who's been on the Ray Flowers ad team for many years, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Let's not forget that his last fully healthy season was 2021. He threw 180 innings that year with 210 strikeouts. Won 13 games. He was really effective. Last year we only pitched 5 games because of the injury, but he had 28 strikeouts in 25 innings. His whip was 105. He's a very solid pitcher. He's a 29-year-old righty, 6'3", 215, 220. He brings good stuff to the table, has had success at the major league level. When will he be ready to go? An open-ended question. But the fact that he's started his rehab and he's actually in game action, we could certainly envision a scenario where Tyler Mahle's back in the starting rotation for the Twins. The Rangers. I say the Twins, the Rangers. Excuse me if I misspoke. Back in as an option for the pitching staff as a starter for the Rangers here in early August. Maybe it's mid-August. And this is starting to get interesting here because we've talked a lot about the injuries down in Texas, right? But the situation with the Rangers is going to get really interesting if these guys get healthy. Jacob deGrom is still working his way back. Tyler Mahle, obviously, is an option for the rotation. They've got Eovaldi, John Gray, Max Scherzer, Lorenzen, and Heaney. If Mahle returns, I would anticipate him in the rotation. I don't think they'd use him out of the bullpen. Obviously, the same thing would be with deGrom. Would they go with the 6-man rotation or keep it 5? If those 2 guys are back and the other guys are still healthy, Lorenzen and Heaney would be the guys that would be out. I don't know if the Rangers really want to have a 5-man rotation with all right-handed pitching. So maybe it's Lorenzen that would go to the bullpen because he has been a swing man and filled a role like that previously. But that's a situation to monitor as they continue to work their way back to health. Brian Wu threw a 20-pitch bullpen session over the weekend, actually, that we didn't hear about until yesterday. He's going to throw a more extended session this week. The hope is that hamstring issue he's dealing with is minor enough that he'll be back prior to the All-Star break, potentially, but probably right after it. So let's call it 10 days to 2 weeks with him again, which I think, given what we saw, would be a welcome return. Obviously, Wu has been terrific when on the hill. It's not an arm issue, so hopefully this extra time has also helped him heal whatever the hell was going on with his arm that was constantly being an issue for him. But we're sounding like a couple of weeks with Brian Wu back in the rotation for the Mariners. Okay, let's go David Bednar. David Bednar resumed playing catch. He's got an oblique issue he's dealing with. He's expected to throw a bullpen session the next day or two. When he returns around the All-Star break, Aroldis Chapman goes to his setup spot, and then we'll see if Chapman and or Bednar actually gets traded. Clayton Kershaw is going to throw a bullpen session today. Remember, he was shut down for a week coming back from that shoulder issue that he's dealing with. Again, they didn't really call it a setup, but they did slow him down for a week. He's going to throw that bullpen session today. The hope is that he'll be back late July, early August for the Dodgers. Ryan Weathers, who's got that finger issue he's dealing with, he's going to be reevaluated in a week or two. He's not really doing much right now. Mid-August is probably a best-case scenario because he's going to have to ramp back up for the Marlins. The Marlins obviously dealing with tons of issues and injuries on the pitching side of things. Josiah Gray, who was getting very close to returning for the Nationals, felt elbow discomfort last time out. And, the hope is that this was going to be his final rehab start and he was going to be back in the rotation for the Nationals. Not going to happen now. MRI is running, is going to be run. I don't know. I mean, this is an issue that's been ongoing. He's dealt with discomfort like this for the majority of the year, including back in April, which has been part of the problem. I don't know if surgery is going to be required here. I don't know if they're going to shut him down, but it certainly does. He's not back here in short order. It's going to be after the All-Star break, if anything, with Josiah Gray. Just disappointing, given that he was pretty close to a return. Jordan Montgomery was placed on the injured list with a knee issue. Is Jordan Montgomery hurt? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. But he's on the injured list. Here's the moral of the story. Next year, free agents, sign a damn contract and get into camp. Is that fair to say? No, it's not fair to say that if you don't get into camp early, you got problems. But the two guys on the hill, Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell, that waited and waited and waited and waited, didn't get the contracts they wanted, aren't performing up to expectations, and aren't going to get the contracts they want next year. Now, Blake Snell's got a $30 million second year on the Giants contracts that he'll pick that up, obviously. In the case of Montgomery, I think he just did a one-year deal, so he'll be a complete free agent. So been asked this a lot with Jordan Montgomery. If you have IL spots, stash Jordan Montgomery. There is still a path to him having be an average pitcher the rest of the way. Totally, there's a path for that. If you don't have IL spots, do you want to stash Jordan Montgomery on your bench? I'm saying no. Take a shot on Shane Baz. Go make a move like that. Montgomery is in the streaming zone in mixed leagues, so he's not someone that you have to hold on to at this point. Let's talk about some of the hitters. Kyle Tucker, and we talked about this live because it happened on the Elite Sports Show with Justin Fenchman and I. Hit the ball off his shin. They ran the test. They said he was okay, nothing broken. They initially said they thought he'd be back in a couple of days. Then he ends up being placed on the injured list. He last played on June 3rd. It's July 3rd. That's a month. Okay? Here's what the manager, Joe Espada, said of Tucker. This is a quote. "I'm hopeful in the next couple of days you could see him out there. and he was talking about potentially running a bit. The speed of the last couple of days is actually progressing faster than we had in the last couple of days, unquote. Okay. He's been out for a month. He's going to need a minor league rehab stint. Look at the calendar. Is he back before the All-Star break? Probably not. And again, this was a player that when this happened, they said his shin was hurt. He's going to miss a day or two. He's going to be okay. It's going to be 6 weeks. And I said this over and over again with Tucker, let's hope when Tucker is back that he is indeed able to be Kyle Tucker, that his leg is okay, that he's able to drive the baseball and also steal those bags. This one was really interesting with Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter, at 8 a.m. yesterday, there was a report that said AJ Hinch told reporters that Carpenter's back was doing pretty well, and he's making progress, and he's getting a chance to participate in some baseball activities. Literally 6 hours later, we got the report that he's experiencing increased discomfort in his back. He's now resting. So in the span of 6 hours, he went from progressing well with his back issue to being shut down. I don't know when Kerry Carpenter is going to return from this back issue. I don't think from the sound of it, the Tigers have any idea when it's going to happen. He was really good in the second half last year. He was really good this year. Yeah, platoon guy, but someone who's tearing right-handers up. No idea when he's back. I would hope that there's a chance it's late July, but given what we're hearing here, I'm going to assume August or later. Very disappointing news and confounding reporting yesterday on Kerry Carpenter. Corey Seager, who took that pitch with the ole, say it with me, off his hand, is being considered day-to-day. Yesterday, Bruce Bochy, the manager, said that he was doing better. He took some swings. He's feeling okay. So the hope is that he'll be back in the starting lineup here in very short order for the Rangers. His teammate, Josh Jung, not good news. He was very close on the cusp of returning from his wrist issue. The problem is that the wrist is still bothering him. And this is what happens when we deal with timelines, right? We hear 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks, and it ends up being longer than that. It's been much longer than anticipated with Josh Jung already. Again, they've shut him down. He hasn't swung a bat since mid-June. So it's been a couple of weeks since he swung a bat. Obviously, we're going to have to start whenever we get going again, a whole new rehab assignment for him there. There is no clarity as to when Josh Jung will be available to return. This most recent reporting is strongly suggestive of the fact that him getting back out there for the Rangers by the end of the month is probably wishful thinking, or the best case scenario, I guess. And when you have setbacks physically, and again, this is why, as we always say, just have surgery. Okay. Not always that simple. Surgery could have gone well, and your body just takes a long time to respond. Again, we're not talking about typing on a keyboard. We're talking about playing in a Major League Baseball game. Bottom line is we don't know if we're going to see him in June, and that's disappointing because he was very close to a return. Finally, before we visit with Armando and Marsal, this one's a personal story that I love. Isiah Kiner-Falefa, who has been very effective this season and the last couple of weeks has been pretty red hot, was someone that we talked about, I think, on Monday, because he was added in a couple of leagues in Fab, or maybe it was last week. I personally added him in my keeper league because I needed help at shortstop. So I make the move. I add him. That's a league where you set your lineup on Monday, add him on Sunday night, get him in the lineup. Then we hear news on Monday he's pulled from the lineup. Then we hear news on Monday that there's a knee issue. Then we hear there's an MRI. Now he's placed on the injured list. So my Isiah Kiner-Falefa edition will get me 0 at-bats this week. That's always fun when that happens. 0 at-bats. I would have been better off not making a move. It's unclear how much time he's going to miss yet. They ran the MRI and the testing, but the Blue Jays haven't released yet to the public what their estimate is for his return to action. Leo Jimenez was called up to take his roster spot. I mean, so whenever any of you say, hey, man, my team's injured, my team's beat up, it's got problems, I feel your pain. I mean, and we're to that point of the season, just pointing it out. We're at the midway point, right? That's where we're at right now. We got a long way to go. Let's look at my labor team, or let's see, what league is this? My FSGA team has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys on the injured list. My labor team has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys on the injured list. 10 guys on the injured list. Somehow in that league, I'm in 6th place, despite having an injured list that includes Kyle Harrison, Nick Lodolo, Yuri Perez, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Lucas Giolito if you go way back. That's an entire pitching staff. So I understand everything we're dealing with because I'm dealing with it too. But boy, was that frustrating with Isiah Kiner-Falefa. Hopefully you didn't make the same move I did, because that's a killer. Adding a guy and then not even getting a single at bat about him before he's placed on the injury list. And that league, some leagues do allow midweek replacements, which I think all leagues should. No league should be set it on Monday, and that's it. I don't want waiver wires to be open during the week, but if we set our lineups on a daily basis, that's my preference. If the waiver wire is closed, let's at least give the old NFBC on a Friday, change our lineup thing. In the league where I picked up Kiner-Falefa, I don't have that option. So I just have got a big old fat 0 for the entirety of the week. I'll return to answering your comments and questions at the end of the show. And again, as always, you can leave those on YouTube and on Facebook. But now it's time to talk a little bit of football. We're not going to get the opportunity on Thursday and Friday because, again, those shows are recorded. The Thursday show being my breakdown of the all-time fantasy baseball team that Justin Fensterman and I put together. The Friday show being the review of my FSGA Champions League draft for football. So we're not going to visit with Tyler Beaker on Thursday or Russell Clay on Fridays. They'll be back next week. But we got a guy who's here on Wednesday because the show's live on Wednesday. And we talk to him every Wednesday. You know him. You probably see some of his work here and there. You probably go to the Elite Sports page and click on the Elite Plus tab and find the old podcast called Mind of Marsal. Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk to Armando Marsal of FantasyGuru.com. Let's bring him in right now. Armando, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing well, Ray. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Yeah, we're doing all right here. It's getting ready for the holiday. The heat decided to turn into Florida. It was 99 degrees here yesterday. So I know what you're dealing with. Great shirt, by the way. I love that.
You see that?
And see it. The FantasyGuru.com shirt. Looking at good sizing there. Nice and soft, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, nice, soft, good sizing, comfortable. And it's been my partner in crime as I do the offensive line breakdown. So it's been with me the entire way, Ray. We're almost there. We're almost at the end, the finish line of the article, but it's been with me. I have washed it in between, guys. I have washed it in between it. You know, for those who are wondering, it has been washed in between sessions as I sit down.
When you say this, a lot of people, obviously, if they're with us at FantasyGuru.com, and if you're not, go to FantasyGuru.com, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. Offensive line breakdowns. People hear that, and they're like, tell them what you and Ted Schuster, I assume Ted's doing it again with you this year. Tell the listeners what you're doing and why is a really wrong and bad attitude to take when it comes to offensive lines.
Well, big shout out to Ted. He already has his portion, his half of the article done. Right. So big shout out to Ted there. Look, it's an in-depth analysis, right? It's going to give you the starting lineups, offensive line for every unit there. The starting 5, we have the reserve that's going to give you their grades. It also has you have the 2023 rankings of where the line stood. Pass blocking, run blocking, adjusted line, the smash reports. It's going to be included in there this year. Their smash report number there, rating there, and then it has an overview of the offensive line. We also have the system, the scheme. We also have the coaching, the offensive line coaching. So it's a really in-depth article. I'm about, I think, 6,000 words in. I'm still not done with the article. I know Ted's another 8 to 10,000 words as well on his end. So it's a lengthy article, but it's very informative, and it's one of my favorites. Really, it's time consuming, but it is one of my favorites because it really. You start diving into these numbers, you start diving into these lines, and you find diamonds in the rough, right? Like you find some diamonds in the rough, and then you can make a strong case for certain running backs, certain quarterbacks, certain players just because of the offensive line, which is something no one talks about, or not that many. I don't want to say no one. We talk about it here, but not that many people talk about it. I think it should be talked about more.
Totally agree. I think it is one of the things that sets us apart over at FantasyGuru.com is our focus on that, because everything does start with the offensive line when we're talking about how the guys are going to perform offensively. As you can see there on the screen again, the NFL package is available. Go to the website, click on the subscribe tab in the top right corner. I'm also going to throw up something here for people to sign up. We have a partnership with Drafters this year, and it's a best ball setup. If you sign up there, if you're an existing user, you can use the promo code ELITE10, and you get a 10% match, which is really nice because a lot of sites don't give you if you're an existing user, give you a bonus. But if you're already part of the crew over there at Drafters, use that promo code ELITE10. If you're brand new and you have never signed up over at Drafters, use the promo code ELITE. That gets you a 100% match, which is terrific. And I bring that up because, Armando, you wrote an article talking about Drafters recently. and there's like $2.5 million in prizes. There's a lot of prizes available for this thing. Give us a quick rundown. What is the Drafters setup? It's best ball, but talk us through that. And is there anything that stands out in that setup versus some of the other best ball setups that folks can find around?
Yeah, so this is essentially it operates as a 12-team PPR 20-round draft, right? That's what you're going to do. That's how you draft your team. You got one quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, flex, and a tight end spot there, and then the rest are reserved. I think, for those who aren't familiar with best ball, how it works is you draft your team. That's your team. There's no waivers. There's nothing else going on. And what really sets this apart for me is, number one, I'm the type of person, like, I like the mom and pop stuff, right? Like, I like to go have a sub at the mom and pop sub store, not Subway, not Quiznos. Like, I like the mom and pop stuff. This is like a mom and pop place, right? It's not the biggest platform, but it's awesome. It's very user friendly. The app is friendly, user friendly. Very easy to draft. You can set notifications. And I love the aspect of PPR, right? We've been playing PPR settings for quite some time. It's one of the more popular settings right now. And the fact that this is a full PPR setting really changes things and how you approach it. And not only that, the 20 rounds, I think that's a very big aspect of it, because then you could really start taking some shots in those, 18th, 19th, 20th round on players that, they might not have a solidified role. There might not be anything right now, but you could take a chance on them, and in week 15, 16, 17, they could be difference makers for you, down the stretch. So I like the depth of this format. I like the scoring settings. I love the roster settings. You could, the 3 receivers, just very user-friendly as well when you look at it. And you mentioned some of the promotions, but when you go on the site, they also have more promotions. So you draft 10 teams, you get 1 extra ticket. You draft 25 teams, you get another extra ticket. You got draft 50 teams, 2 extra tickets, 100 teams, 3 extra tickets. And if you max out, they give you a $100 bonus with funds, and you get a Drafters t-shirt. So that is a promotion they're running on the site. That's not through us, but the more you get from that bonus that you deposit, the greater chances you are of maxing this out, right? So take advantage of all of our promotions right now there with Drafters.
Armando, Marsal, and Ray Flowers here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Also, with your work with Drafters, Armando, you talked about ADP over there, because everyone's obviously got their own ADPs based upon the league and the provider and all that. Is there maybe a running back or a wide receiver or both that when you're looking at ADP, you said to yourself, that number's a little low? Give the folks a little bit of a taste of, this or the mind of Marsal, if you will. I know that's your podcast, again, over at the website Elite Plus at the top to find that. The mind of Marsal says, you know what? This running back, this wide receiver on Drafters, their ADP is too low. Target these guys. Who do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with someone who's going in the 4th round, which I think is still a very low ADP. Travis Etienne. I absolutely love him this year. I've been very, open about how much I'm investing in him. I believe I already have 50% exposure. Obviously, I'm not going to be as, invested in him because there's a lot of volatility, but I expect him to be one of my highest owned running backs. He's going in round 4, and I think that's too cheap. He finished RB3 in PPR scoring settings. He had over 300 opportunities. I don't see his role changing all that much. And when we're looking at these high early draft capital investments, we want opportunities, right? We want good situations. And I think Travis Etienne is a very good situation. This is an offense that underwhelmed last year, and one that I expect it's going to play a little bit better than what we saw last year. I think that's going to benefit him. Zach Moss. I mean, look, he's going as RB24. I absolutely love where he's going. He's someone that makes a lot of sense for those of you who are going either modified 0 RB or 0 RB. If you're waiting into those mid-late rounds, he's someone you want to target. He's going to step into a big opportunity there with Cincinnati. We're going to talk about red zone. We know Joe Mixon's red zone role last year, and we're going to see Moss, maybe not the entire, all of these opportunities, but he's going to get a large percentage of those opportunities. So someone that to me is going very overlooked. I've talked about how, he has had limited opportunities throughout his careers, but has been very successful when he's gotten 14 or more rush attempts, averaging over 80 yards, has 7 touchdowns. And that's only been in 11 games. And he's averaged double-digit fantasy points in these opportunities. So we saw last year, Ray, I mean, he played so good that even when Jonathan Taylor returned to action, Moss still had a solidified role there with Indianapolis. So for me, someone who, as long as he's going to get the opportunities, should be good to go and should smash that ADP. I mean, I think he has potential to be a top 15 RB if he does work as that full, at the every down back for Cincy, which I think will be the case here. Zamir White is another one I wrote about in the ADP targets article. I think he's going too cheap. Josh Jacobs is no longer in the picture. I am not scared of Alexander Mattison. I think he's a backup. That's what he is. I think we've seen that now from Mattison. I don't think he's going to cut in too much into Zamir White's role. He's more explosive than Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. So I think, talking about offensive line, this is an upgraded offensive line. It's a revamped offensive line. They're going to be better than what we saw last year. I think it's going to be a strength for the Raiders here, and I think that's going to benefit Zamir White. And one that really surprised me at the running back position is Brian Robinson. He's coming off the board as an RB3. I view him more like, that low-end RB2. And because of that, I like his price. His ADP is 111.5. Just, in my opinion, too cheap. I know there's some concerns about Austin Eckler. I don't view Austin Eckler as an in-between the tackle runner. I don't think they're going to be utilizing him in the red zone. Last season, Washington, only one player had double-digit rush attempts inside the 20-yard line, and that was Brian Robinson. I expect that same role there for him. And then it would be a disservice if I don't quickly talk about Alvin Kamara, right? Who he could be a top 12 back. He's coming off the board as RB16, ADP of 73.2 rate. I think it's too cheap. We have Kubiak, the son of Kubiak there. We know the system is very fruitful for running backs. So I think he's a very good value there. And then at the receiver position, look, you're gonna notice I'm very bullish on Jacksonville. I'm gonna start it off with Christian Kirk. I just think he's going too cheap. He's coming off the board, 37.8, round end of round 3, beginning of round 4. And I'm looking for target shares. He's had over a 20% target share since entering Jacksonville. He's going to be their go-to. No more Calvin Ridley, no more Zay Jones. Yes, they've added some pieces, but it's going to be Christian Kirk. When you look at what they've added Gabe Davis. I think he's going to be able to stretch the field. Brian Thomas is going to be able to stretch the field, which is going to leave a lot of underneath situations for Kirk, which is his bread and butter, which is where he's been very, very successful. So for me, I think he's a great value. I'm looking at Terry McLaurin, his ADP. I like him. He stands out. Another alpha receiver who's kind of going, a little bit under the radar, in my opinion. Calvin Ridley, they've talked about, in Tennessee, this is an entirely new offense, an entirely new system. They've talked about using him as they did in Cincinnati, with Jamar Chase, it's kind of that role where he's going to be running out of the slot, out wide, left, right, all over the field. And I think that's going to transition into a lot of opportunities here. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is still in the picture, but I ultimately think that Calvin Ridley becomes their number one receiver. And, we saw last year, Will Levis is not afraid to sling the football. And I think that that's going to benefit Calvin Ridley here quite a bit. If we're going a little later, everyone's talking about, Watson, Reed, and these guys. I'm going to keep going with Romeo Doubs and invest in the cheapest receiver there in Green Bay, right? Like, if we have high expectations for Jordan Love, I like what I've seen from Doubs. I think he's a capable receiver, and yeah, he might not possess the ceiling that some of the other receivers have, but that's why he's going at 108.1 overall, and getting a piece from this offense is something I like to do. And if I could get a cheap piece like Dobbs, he makes a lot of sense. And then if we're going way, way, way down the list here, just mention a couple of these. So Michael Wilson there in Arizona. I'm trying to, mix my exposure between him and Zay Jones. I think one of them can emerge as a reliable best ball receiver, not someone that you want to, season long that's going to be an every week starter, but in best ball, there's going to be some spike weeks for one of these two. So I'm going to try to, spread my exposure between the two. Roman Wilson, Devontae Walker is another one that I've been going at. And that's kind of where I'm at, at the running back receiver. There's obviously a lot of different pockets where we're going to be targeting certain players or whatnot. But when you're looking at ADP, like right now, early on, these are some of the standouts, obviously not the top guys. We're staying away from the elite group, and, obviously first, second round, those are market priced correctly there.
Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. For more of his work at Drafters, obviously go to fantasyguru.com. Use the promo code you see there on the screen. Use that code ELITE for a 100% match if you're a new user over at Drafters. And if you've already been part of the crew over there, use the promo code ELITE10. That gets you a 10% match bonus there. So they're hooking you up over at drafters.com. You wrote about the red zone. You mentioned that, Armando. Let's dive into that a little bit. You wrote about the red zone. Let's be basic here. What is the red zone? Talk to us about what it is, where area of the field it is, and why is it important?
So the red zone is basically the 20-yard, like the 20-yard line between the goal line and the 20-yard line. That's the red zone. The green zone you mentioned is inside the 5-yard line, between the goal line and, the 5-yard line. That's the green zone there. Why are these touches and opportunities so significant, Ray? Well, it's simple, right? The closer you are to the goal line, the higher chance it is to get in the end zone, right? It's not guaranteed touchdowns. And I wrote this in the article. This is not guaranteed touchdowns. Opportunities in here does not equate to touchdowns. However, it does put you in an opportunity to score, a higher opportunity to score. Because yes, anyone can break one from the 50-yard line. But if you're 5, 6, 7 yards away from the end zone and you're 15 yards away, I think player A with 7 yards shy of the end zone has a higher chance of score, right? So that's how I view it. I think these are very, important opportunities. And I want to point out, not all opportunities in this part of the field are created equal, right? Like there are some teams that they, 50% of the rush attempts, a player is 50% of the rush attempts, but that team is 31st in red zone scoring attempts. There's another player who has maybe 40, but that team is, third or fourth in red zone scoring attempts. And it's all included in the article. That chart, with the different charts and stuff, and the efficiency in this part of the field is also included in the spreadsheet that I include in the article. And I think you have to correlate all of this. So I wanted to point that out because it sometimes it can be misleading where, this guy had, 70% of his team's, rush attempts, but that was one of the worst teams right there a lot. So it doesn't mean all that much if you don't correlate all the spreadsheets together.
Let's talk about a couple of the numbers that are listed in the article over at fantasyguru.com, Armando. And you point out that Raheem Mostert, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts all had 15 touchdowns in the red zone last year on the ground to lead the league. You said, remember, opportunity doesn't always lead to results, and two of these guys are quarterbacks. Any of these three get to 10 this year? Do you feel comfortable? It's a 50% decrease from last year. But like where are we at this year? Because that number is so huge last year. And in the case of Hurts and Allen in particular, well, I guess Raheem Mostert too, 15 touchdowns, just wow, right? So talk us through that.
Yeah, I don't. So Mostert, I'm not envisioning 15 touchdowns from him this year, right? They've added more depth to the running back position there. Devon Achane is entering his second year, so I don't envision the 15 touchdowns. And then not only that, we've seen Mostert deal with injuries throughout his career, right? So that's a concern for me as well. As far as Jalen Hurts, that's another one that I'm skeptical about as far as 15 rushing touchdowns because they added Barkley, right? And they've also, they lost Kelsey. He was a big part of what they do there with the push and all that stuff that they do there. So can he get 10? Can he get 9? Maybe, but 15 again, though, I'm just not sure. I would say maybe 7, 8 in this part of the field. I think it's more feasible for him. Josh Allen, yeah, I do think so. Look, this is a team that the offensive line is not the greatest, but it's Josh Allen. When you look at the backfield, they added Davis, but I don't think that's going to change all that much for Allen. And you lost some key pieces in the passing game, right? So I think he's going to have to do a little bit more hero ball here this upcoming season, which is going to lead to more rushing and more rush attempts, especially in this part of the field. You point out, Josh Allen, 35 rush attempts inside the 20-yard line, both Mostert and Hurts over 40. So just keep that in mind, right? He was just more efficient in this part of the field than some of the other guys.
Saquon Barkley is a name that's come up, and this also ties into what you were saying earlier. Barkley had 100% of the Giants' rushes last season from inside the 5-yard line. 100%. Now, it was only 6 carries, right? But he was the guy. And coaching staff basically the same. Daniel Jones back under center. Okay. What does this mean for the Giants' backfield? Does it mean that Devin Singletary is getting all the work? Does it mean that Gray or Tracy get involved? Can you take what happened last year and really apply it to this season? Talk us through that, because it seems like, the job's open, and last year the job went to just one guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't apply what the numbers from last year. And this is one of those perfect examples where Jeff talks about, you talk about, Ted talks about, I hear you guys on the radio where don't go by last year's numbers and just now all of a sudden that's going to happen this year. I don't think they have, they do not have a Saquon Barkley on this backfield, right? And I do not expect any of these running backs to assume all of that role in the red zone. I expect them to use a mixture of these guys, right? Whether it is Singletary, whether it is Tracy, whether it is Gray, whoever it is going to be. I think they're going to use some type of combination. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're going with a hot hand. We're also going to see Daniel Jones a little bit more involved here, right? He dealt with injuries last year. He's another one that has sneaky wheels here that can get a little bit more involvement in the red zone. So I think everything has changed here from last year to this year. So we have to treat this as an entirely, new situation, new backfield, which is really what it is at the end of the day. So do I think Singletary is the front runner to receive the majority of the opportunities? Perhaps. Do I think he's good enough and, he can sustain it for an entire season? Do I think he has that build to be a 300-plus opportunity guy? I don't know. I'm not quite sold on that just yet. Maybe you have a difference of opinion there, but for me, I don't trust this backfield all that much.
I don't disagree with that. I think that's a fair position to take. Another running back, Armando, Joe Mixon. Now, this goes back to the Zach Moss thing, who might be on my team that I'll be talking about here on the show on Friday. Zach Moss goes to a scenario where last year, Joe Mixon was the only running back that had 70+% of his team's red zone rushing attempts. He was almost at 80%. He dominated the work. So that's speaking to what potentially could happen to Zach Moss if they run a similar system. But my question for you is on Mixon directly. He goes to a new team with the Texans. Do you envision Mixon filling a similar role with the Texans? Because, last year, Damian Price was supposed to be a guy and he just fell out, and obviously the Texans went out and got Mixon and, there's a lot of mileage on that body, but he seems to be a guy that's touching the ball 18 times a game. Talk us through Joe Mixon and what your expectations are for his workload with the Texans. And if you think he's going to get a chance to, again, dominate work in the red zone.
I do think he's going to have an opportunity to dominate the workload in the red zone here. When you look at last year's numbers for Houston, Devin Singletary, speaking of him, he led the team with 32 rush attempts, accounting for 41.6% of the rush attempts in this part of the field. Dameon Pierce, 28.6. Now, what was interesting to me was Devin Singletary had 7 rush attempts inside the 5-yard line. Dameon Pierce had 8. So they trusted Pierce a little bit more, not much, but in my opinion, that shows that they trust him a little bit more than they did Devin Singletary in that part of the field. Bigger body. I think Joe Mixon will fill that role really nicely, right? So I do think that he'll dominate the opportunities in this part of the field. I think he's going to dominate the opportunities inside the 5-yard line. Though I don't know if they're going to give him, the 100%, 80%. I think, upwards of 60 makes a lot of sense here for Mixon. I do still think that they might rotate Pierce in the mix there, but Mixon, in my opinion, is going to be their guy. I think he's going to, assume over 60% of the opportunities in this backfield, including that of the red zone. So I think his role is solidified here. And it's an offensive line that, I wrote about them that they were injured last year, really hasn't put it together, but it's one that could be better than expected going into the season.
Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. Head over to the website, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. You get all of his work, all of his insight. He's constantly in the Discord answering questions. That's part of the package at fantasyguru.com. PPR rankings, non-PPR rankings, dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, best ball rankings, IDP rankings. Yeah, we got a lot, and this goes throughout the entirety of the season. It's not just the preseason product. It's all the way through the year. Myself, Armando, and the whole crew there to help you out and win a championship this season. Armando, thanks for joining us today. Oh, and by the way, again, remember, go to fantasyguru.com, the Elite Plus tab at the top. Click on that, and you can find Armando's podcast, The Mind of Marsal, linked right there. Armando, thanks for your efforts and your hard work today. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on, and everyone have a great day.
You got it. That's Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. All right, let's end things here on a high note. We'll check out the comments that have been left here before we shut things down. Doug M says, good morning, afternoon, happy 4th, back at you. Doug says, ribs with Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Yeah, Doug, get that Sweet Baby Ray's. Tony C, good morning, brother. Great job in the cash game write-up yesterday. Thank you. Yeah, seemed like a lot of the guys hit home runs yesterday, which is obviously what we want to see. Unfortunately, Kirby didn't get the victory. He was out-dueled by Grayson Rodriguez, but at least he pitched very well as our pitcher of the day as well. Back to Doug M. What order do you rate SF players coming back? Preferred adding, that is. That's a really good question. Because we don't know the health, it's so tough. Let me pull up the list here so I don't forget anybody, because I had like 18 guys that I noted all at once, right? All right, I'm going to say this. And this again, check the rankings at fantasyguru.com. Not all these guys are listed. I would say the following. I'd go Blake Snell, oh God, Kyle Harrison, Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb. But again, when these guys are coming, Robbie Ray could end up being the best guy of the group. It's a really tough question to answer when you've got guys coming back from injuries, unfortunately. But that's the way I play it. But again, I push everyone. The rankings were updated on July 1st. Great filibuster says, salute, Ray. Salute. Same to you. Chris C. Ray, would you drop pitcher heel for Baz of the Rays? I 100% would add Baz. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I think it's unfortunately a terrible waste of a commodity to drop heel at this point. I really wish you would have traded him a month ago when you could have got multiple pieces back. I don't want to drop heel. Now, that being said, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I got him a couple of spots ahead of Baz in the rankings. Let's verify that before I say something that doesn't match the rankings and then someone busts me. But I think he's a couple of spots ahead in the rankings. Though, again, it's gotten even worse since the rankings were released. Baz is at, all right, 76. Where is heel? I have heel a couple of spots ahead. Yeah, I guess I'm going to say no based on that. But again, I want to add Baz. And if you want to be aggressive and make the move, it's not wrong. There's risk, but there's risk if you hold on to heel too. Typically, Rob says, good morning, Kings. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you. Chris F says, we need a fantasy guru hot dog eating contest. That actually would be a great idea. Who wins on the staff? Well, I know it won't be Jeff Mann. I don't. He thinks that hot dog eating contests are gross, so it won't be him. I gotta admit, I haven't had a meal with everybody. If I'm on the right day, I can eat a lot of hot dogs. On the wrong day, I'd be just a guy. Looking at the list here, Armando's too healthy. He probably wouldn't eat them. Ted Schuster could probably put some down. Rob Povia. Tyler Beaker's probably too refined unless they're like Italian sausage. He probably wouldn't eat a regular hot dog. Russell Clay wouldn't eat them unless they're pretzels involved. Scott Bonder might be a dark horse. Chris Rose. How about Chris Rose? I'd say Chris Rose or Rich Mileto. Those would be my top. I could see Rich just going balls to the wall and winning the contest and then not puking for as long as possible to win the contest and then throwing up at the end. But I think I also saw him say in Discord he doesn't eat hot dogs. So I don't know. A good question. We probably should just do it to determine a winner. David P says, happy 4th of July. Back at you, David. Appreciate that. Chaka says, rapid fire question. MO minor league stashes, Spencer Jones or Marcelo Meyer, Caden Dana or Cade Civale. Take Civale of the Nationals. Take Mayer of the Red Sox. Those would be the two guys that I would stash. Chris F says, thoughts on the Chicago running back other than Swift, worth a shot in best ball? Oh, sorry, we didn't get to this with Armando around. I apologize. I would say this, to be quite honest with you. I am not in prime best ball rankings, thought process, et cetera, right now. I'm doing too many other things. I would hit up the guys in Discord. Obviously, Armando's writing about it. Tyler Beaker, who is usually on Thursdays, he's the guy that's kind of spearheaded our entire product there. He's got rankings for the websites and all that. So I would encourage you, Chris, to check that out. Eric S. says, thanks for everything. Happy 4th. Same to you, Eric. Be indulging in some Chief Lapu-Lapus tonight. Oh, that sounds like a good night. Enjoy that. And then finally, Mark Peterson says, what is wrong with Nolan Jones? The same thing that's been wrong with him all year. He's not healthy. I mean, when you get hurt, it screws up so many things, physically, mentally, your process. Since he's returned, it hasn't been great. Let's pull it up. There's tons of strikeouts. He had a 5 strikeout game the other night. There's tons of strikeouts that he's dealing with, but the batted ball data is not terrible. In fact, it's pretty much right on par, if not slightly better than last year. So I think that there's still hope. I do appreciate the fact that he's still controlling the strike zone in terms of the walks. Got to make more contact, but I think ultimately just has to stay healthy. It's not as bad as it appears since he's returned. The results have not matched some of the underlying metrics with Nolan Jones. Thanks for listening today, everybody. Really appreciate it. Head to fantasyguru.com, top of the page. Click on the subscribe tab. Get the products, baseball products. DFS and wagering are available right now on the discounted rate. Sign up for the football package. We got you covered from soup to nuts from now through the regular season. The next couple of days, this show will not be live. We'll be on tape delay, or actually will be recorded. Tomorrow will be the all-time fantasy baseball draft, so check that out. And then Friday will be my review of my FSGA Champions League draft that does include Zach Moss, who we talked about earlier with Armando Marsal. So head to the website, ask those questions, get the product, get involved at fantasyguru.com. Thanks for everybody for listening. Fantasy Sports Daily, 12 o'clock Eastern PM, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks to Armando, and thanks to you. Happy July 4th. I got some things to go right for the fantasy baseball side of things, and got some talking with Jeff Mann to do from 3 to 6 on SiriusXM, and then from 8 to 10 tonight as well on SiriusXM. Thanks for listening today. We'll be back with you here tomorrow and Friday, and then back on Monday live again for Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.